Welcome to Skills for Life, a podcast about high-demand jobs that are shaping future opportunities. This show is brought to you by the North Shore Schools Foundation. I'm Dorrian, your host and a North Shore mom. Let's get started. Today on the show, I have Lana Gochenauer, and she is a virtual design and construction solution manager at MacDonald-Miller Facility Solutions. That is a lot of solutions, Lana. Welcome to the show.
Oh, it's great to be here, Kira. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Okay, so obviously you do something to do with solving problems, but other than that, I have no idea what I've just said. So can you tell everybody a little bit about the field that you're in and the work that you do?
So the field that I'm in is construction, but I'm a technologist inside of this construction bubble. And in construction, we have a lot of things that we need to solve, meaning, does the building fit? That sounds very strange to say, but is it fit on the site? Does the comfort systems, meaning the air conditioning, the water, the waste, does it fit in the building? Can we get electricity to you above the ceiling? So we digitally prototype the building inside of the computer. So we make sure that it fits so that we can go out to the field and build in a more efficient manner.
Wow, that is so cool. I had no idea that job existed, and that makes perfect sense. Those are very important solutions to be finding. So I love that. How in the world did you get into the role that you're in now?
So I took a more traditional path. Years ago, we used to be called drafters. So the traditional pathway then was to go to trade school. So I did go to trade school while I was in high school. Ours tended to run parallel to your last year of high school. And then if you needed to, you could take an associate's degree at a community college. And then if you wanted to, you could roll that into a 4-year degree and go become an engineer, or 5 years and go become an architect. I stayed as a drafter because just about that time, the technology started. So we had AutoCAD that was starting into this, and I liked the technology aspect of it. So I stayed with the technology. When we started having networking capabilities, I would pull the wires to put the computers together. And so I stayed in the technology aspect of it. I never stopped learning. I kept taking any type of class that I was offered. So I do have a lot of certifications. I do have a lot of accreditations for things in construction and in design, because I've actually worked for architects, I've worked for engineers, and I've worked for general contractors. So I have a very large skill set, a skill stack, simply from taking any opportunity I could to learn.
Wow. That's been such a great part of this show, just as the season has unfolded, is the number of people who have been talking about that lifelong learning aspect and the desire to continue learning, and how that is really how mastery is built. And I think you've really shown us that in how your career unfolded. That's really cool. So tell me a little bit about how you see the field transforming over the next 5 to 10 years as our, current high school students are maybe coming out of education and into the workplace.
It is going to be transformed quite a bit in the next 5 years. There's a thing inside of Seattle called Seattle 2030, the Climate Action Plan for 2050. This means the buildings that we currently have are not very green. There's a lot of waste in the building itself, meaning when you put heat in the building or you put air conditioning in the building, it leaves the building quicker than it should. So there are certification programs, LEED, building rating system. There's salmon safe, so that the water on runoff doesn't hurt the salmon. There's something called Green Globes, and then the Seattle 2030 project, so that our buildings are efficient. Aside from the buildings being efficient, how we build the buildings needs to change. Construction is one of the most wasteful industries in the world, and the amount of debris generated from a construction site is not sustainable for a green environment. So that's going to have to change. And that's a lot of what you see with what we do digitally prototyping this building. Meaning, if we can fabricate the building before it actually goes to the site, we have less waste because we know exactly what we need to produce and where it needs to go exactly in that building. So we can reduce that solid waste. And we can also then go back and retrofit buildings, because when you demolish a building, that's terribly wasteful. So we need to make sure that the industry of construction the industry of design becomes a much more green endeavor than it currently is. And that's where this VDC aspect can come into this.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And how wonderful that the industry is aware of what's going on and has plans for how to make these shifts happen over time to allow this to become a greener industry, especially here in Seattle, where we care about that a lot. So that's really good to know. So if students are, hearing this and thinking, wow, that sounds really cool and like something I might be interested in, or if parents are listening and thinking, wow, my kid would really thrive in an industry like that, what should they be doing now as maybe high school students? What kind of classes should they be thinking about taking? What should they be planning for next steps? What are your takeaways for students that might be thinking about this field?
So there are a lot of soft skills I think we tend to forget about for students. And some of those soft skills or softer skills would be communication. Because being in the industry that I'm in, I'm a translator, if you think about it. The engineer is creating a design, but that design needs to be translated into a language that can be understood by the field personnel. So I have to be able to communicate with an engineer, but yet I also have to be able to communicate with someone in the field. So there's the verbal communications, there's the written communications that occur with this. People are like, oh, I love to draw, except what we do isn't that artistic drawing. It's a very technical drawing aspect. And a lot of people are like, oh, I have to be really good at math. Well, the computer's good at math. As long as you know what to input into the computer, your math skills have to be competent. Don't get me wrong on that statement. But the computer does a lot of this work for you. It's funny is Minecraft, people build inside of Minecraft.
Right.
Autodesk itself as a company has Sketchbook, there's SketchUp. There are these other programs in the computer that you can use to design elements inside of this. A lot of the other skills, and especially for the trades, be it the electrical, be it the fire protection, be it the HVAC group, those are some specific skills that, yes, trade school definitely would be your benefit to go and learn about that trade. You don't have to become a journeyman in any of those, but you need to learn about the terminology that we use and understanding where that comes from. So that would be where the trade school comes into it. The software side of it is the fun side of it. And what's really nice about this industry is we're moving towards augmented reality and we're moving towards virtual reality, mixed reality. So if your child comes to you and says, hey, I want an Oculus, you're like, oh, it could be a good step in a career direction because of
Wow.
the virtual reality that we actually use in construction. We let you walk the building before you build the building.
Right.
MacDonald-Miller specifically has what we call the M Lab, and it has an Oculus. You put that headset on. Microsoft has the HoloLens, and we use that on the job site. So even those aspects of coding and of gaming are now falling into what we do in the virtual design and construction world.
Wow. That's so cool. So, if I'm hearing you right, what you're saying is kids who are really deep into the virtual reality, gaming, and Minecraft and that kind of thing, this could be a way for them to pull that passion into their day to day.
Most certainly. Yeah. Yeah.
That's really cool. I bet there's a bunch of kids jumping up and down right now saying, sign me up. That's awesome. So I'm curious, do you have any influencers they should be following, people, if they're interested in this, that they should be getting to know, or places they should be volunteering? Like, what are the hands-on things they can be doing tangibly to get involved in this work in this community?
So inside of social media, I'm active on Twitter. So I'm at Lana G AEC, so LANAG AEC, and I will retweet a lot of the information that comes out from the company called Autodesk. And Autodesk is the parent company that has AutoCAD and Revit and Navisworks and Maya. That's an interesting aspect. I don't work in Maya, but that's a lot of the Hollywood will use that for their movies inside of that. So Autodesk would be one of those places that you would go to look at. There are companies that work in photogrammetry type work. So Struction Site is a company that has things that we use for scanning, the LiDAR scanning that we use to capture the building as it currently is. There's Women in BIM. That's not gender specific. That's just the title that they have with it. So anyone can join inside of that. But yeah, once you get a hold of Autodesk.com, there's a whole community inside of Twitter, and you can get a hold of them through Autodesk and just seeing who they're retweeting and who they're talking with.
I love that. When I think of construction, I have a really stereotypical image in my mind of like who's in this field. And I know we were chatting a little bit before we started rolling, and you were sharing a little bit about how there's so many more types of people in this field, but there are some personality types that help you succeed here. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. We all kind of have that image of that big burly guy with a tool belt.
Yep, that's what I'm picturing.
They exist. They really do. We need them. But there are other people that are involved with this. There is a young lady at MacDonald-Miller who was a safety coordinator, and she is out on the job site, and she would not be what you would expect when you conjure up in your mind someone on a construction site. So it's not that it's limited to a certain person, but a personality type. Timidity is not really good in construction. It's probably not great in some other fields too.
Right.
You need to be a little more forthright. For me, specifically coming up over the years that I have, I've had incidents with certain people that really wanted to kind of exert their dominance over me, and it was not going to happen. But that's my personality. But you still need to be able to stand for yourself and not let someone try and belittle you or belittle your work or belittle who you are. So that's every field. Construction does have that. Oh yeah, that big macho guy over there. He's gonna come and talk nasty to that young lady, and that's actually not the truth. It's very, very rare that you see that happen, and it's even more rare now. Like my career, I've had it happen to me twice.
Wow.
But nowadays, everyone, they want to bring up people into the construction culture, especially since we are having a difficult time getting young people into the trades. And we want them to understand that there is this whole other path for any gender. If you're non binary, if you're transgendered, coming into this environment of construction isn't what everybody thought it used to be. It has changed, and they are much more welcoming.
How wonderful is that? I love hearing that. Thank you for sharing that so that our students can have a better understanding. And me as well. Like I said, I had this typical, stereotypical image in my head, and I appreciate you, breaking that down for me as well. So final thoughts. Any final thoughts for our students that you would want them to know?
I think this is a really fun career to get into, especially if a 4-year college isn't in your mind right now. Because I have a young gentleman that works for me, and he didn't know what he wanted to do. So he went to a trade school. He became a drafter. He's used this technology. And 10 years later, he goes, you know what? I really do like coding. So now he has a stabilized career. He understands what he wants to do now. He didn't have to make that decision at 16 or 17, but at 28, 29, he has a better idea where he wants to be. So now he's back in school and he's getting his degree in programming. But yet he's going to be specializing his programming to the Autodesk software, and he's going to be able to make our workflow process better. There's a lot of buttons I have to press sometimes. He's going to automate those. So it's going to take 10 steps into 2. So he's decided to do that. Again, you can go into a trade school and you can go, I really want to become an architect. But guess what? You have a really good foundation now, and you have a job now, and you can then decide, okay, I'm going to go back to school, or I'm going to go to school. It gives you a lot more options than having to decide the rest of your life at 16 or 17, which terrified me at that age too.
Yeah, it's such a great point, to be able to go to school or to, higher education, knowing what you want to do and having worked it and have a really clear understanding of what that actually means to have that job and to decide, okay, now I'm going to go get this new set of skills that's going to help me do this next thing. I mean, that's really huge and empowering, especially when you're spending that much money to go to school, to know you're spending it on what you really want to do. So I so appreciate your perspective and everything you brought to the table today, Lana. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. It was such a pleasure to talk with you.
Well, thank you for having me. I look forward to doing this again if possible.
We hope you'll join us again, and remember to hit subscribe to be notified about upcoming episodes. Join the conversation on our Facebook page, Build Skills for Life. That's Build Skills, the number 4, and then the word life. Are you interested in advertising as a sponsor for this podcast? Contact us at podcast@nsdfoundation.org. To learn more about the North Shore Schools Foundation, visit us at northshoreschoolsfoundation.org. Thanks for listening.